Hi, I'm Dr. Quinton White. I'm professor of biology and marine science at Jacksonville University. I'm sorry I cannot be with you this afternoon to celebrate 25 years of the Jacksonville Reef research team. It's sort of hard to believe that it's been that long. I was flashing back when Mike and Larry and others asked me to first MC, and I can't be there, so I'll do this via video, about some of the things that we did to sort of get started. Joe Halusky and I were involved in getting the first group trained. We actually tried groups in Daytona and in Jacksonville, and it actually took us about 3 tries to finally get the core group together to make it sort of work. I hope Joe is there this afternoon, and I hope that y'all can all thank him for his effort. He was a Marine Extension agent at the time, and he was always sort of creating new and different projects that we got involved in. The idea that we had at the time was there was a lot of interest in offshore diving, offshore fishing, and the importance of artificial reefs. You got to think, this is back before people really understood just how important they were. A number of people for a number of years had been dumping stuff in the ocean, but a lot of that was white goods and automobiles and things that were rusting away and going away very quickly. And so there were other people involved. Gus Harms had been instrumental in doing some of this. He was a operator of a gas station that's now there across from the Wyndham Hotel. So a lot of people have been involved for a number of years in trying to build fishing spots offshore Jacksonville. George Strait had taken buoys out to help mark some of these spots. So lots and lots of people have been involved in this idea. And Joe had the idea that we needed to train divers that could go out and gather data in a meaningful, realistic way so that we could assess what these reefs were actually doing. And I think after a few fitful starts, we actually finally got it to work. And a number of people sort of began carrying the ball, if you would. I'm very proud of the fact that we have a reef research team, and I think it's one of those lasting legacies that you'll sort of look back on. I think Joe can be very proud that we actually got it started and things are going along there. Well, I've thought about memorable moments that I've had, and we've had some spectacular dives offshore. We've also had some disasters. I can think of a few times when we went offshore and dove down and were on the wrong spot and had no visibility, couldn't see a darn thing, and came back up and think, why did we come out here and spend all this time and effort to do this and couldn't do anything? But other times went out and had spectacular dives, found good information, found things we hadn't seen before. It was just a very worthwhile feeling to see what's going on. As the group has matured, we've watched things happen in terms of gaining more and more professionalism in diving, the training programs, learning to identify those little brown jobbers, those little blue jobbers, those little black jobbers as to what they are and what's going on. How to gather information, how to look at live bottom, how to look at dead bottom. All these kind of things are happening. So congratulations on 25 years. I think it's an exciting time, and I'm proud to be part of it. Again, I'm sorry I can't be there today. More than the successes are some of the failures where we went to try to do something that didn't work. But you learn from those kind of things. And like I said, I remember going out one dive and dropping down, and we thought we were on a reef and there was nothing there, sand bottom, and you couldn't see 2 feet. It was awful. Other times been down and had spectacular dives and saw all kinds of things on the bottom, a lot of coral. You know, I've been working with Ed Kalakauskas. I've been working with Ed for all these years. And Ed continues to be sort of Mr. Dive, Mr. Artificial Reefs offshore Jacksonville. I remember we dealt with a lot of people who had very little biological training, and we were trying to instill upon them the importance of professionalism and doing the same thing and being repetitive and applying the scientific method, and in particular calling things by the appropriate names, and oftentimes genus and species names. And I remember one time we were talking about various species and started talking about detritus, and detritus in the food chain. Now, detritus is basically dead and dying organic matter that becomes part of the food chain as animals eat it. And I remember somebody then sort of looked and says, Doc, I'm sorry, what's the genus and species of detritus? And of course, it has no genus and species. It's just dead organic matter. So I just remember that being sort of funny. I had a lot of fun identifying things. And I remember, we brought things back and didn't know what they were all the time, and had a lot of fun identifying stuff. But I remember early on the professionalism that people approached this and the way they sort of worked. I did a course one time for the Reef research team on invertebrates and organization, classification, things like that. So it's been a lot of fun over the years. Well, I think being part of the Reef research team has given people a better understanding of science, how science works, the necessity for repetition, the necessity for doing things a consistent way. And you can't go do it one way one day, another way the next day, someplace else the next day, and then having meaningful results. So the idea of doing a fish count and knowing how to run a transect and how to do certain things, understanding that time and length and those kind of things do make a difference. You can't just go report, oh, I saw 4 species. That doesn't make any difference. How long at times you see them, under what kind of area you see them. And I think people begin to understand the importance of science and how that kind of thing works. One of the things I think Joe Volusky understood was the economic benefit of artificial reefs. It's been a number of years ago now that we did the study, but at the time we found that there were over 100 businesses involved in fishing, boating, offshore activities for Jacksonville, and I suspect it's higher now. And at the time, it generated something in the vicinity of, I want to say it was like a $43 million economic impact. So it was pretty impressive when you began to realize what that meant to the local economy. In fact, I'm convinced that we would not have the fishing offshore Jacksonville today if it wasn't for the artificial reef program, building artificial reefs, as well as the reef research team being able to assess the bottom before a reef is deployed, after reef's deployed, and then follow the reefs over their life history. Well, the idea behind artificial reefs is that typically when you go offshore, you find 2 kinds of bottom, what we call live bottom, which are basically rocky outcroppings, and dead bottom, which is basically sand. And it's not dead, but in terms of fish productivity and things like that, there's not much there. So the idea behind artificial reefs was to try to mimic a natural reef, a natural limestone reef, by putting down concrete or old ships, things that would last for a while. And in doing so, you basically help increase productivity, help increase the number of fish species in the area. There's some controversy as whether an artificial reef actually increases it or just attracts species that are there anyway. And I'm of the opinion that it actually increases productivity. It creates opportunities, habitat where a number of species, individual species, can live that they wouldn't otherwise have a space to live in.